Today we're working in Chapter 1, Lesson 2, page 93, and we are going to go over problems 1 through 11. This is on decimals and fractions. So number 1 asks us to write, numbers 1 through 4 asks us to write each decimal as a fraction in simplest form. So when we are writing changing a decimal to a fraction, we want to make sure that we start off by reading the decimal correctly. So instead of reading this as 0.5, we want to read it with the proper place value. And that is the reason we want to do that is because it will help us to change it into a fraction. So when we know our place value, we know that this is 5/10. So when we read this decimal, we read it as 5/10. So when we want to write it as a fraction, that's easy to do because it's this, it's the same number, 5/10. And then we look at 5 and 10, and we see that they are both divisible by 5. They have a GCF of 5. And so when we divide them each by 5, divide the numerator by 5, divide the denominator by 5, we get 1/2. So in simplest form, our fraction is 1/2. When we look at number 2, we have 0.7. When we read that as using the correct place value, we read it as 7/10. So to write that as a fraction, we write it as 7/10. And this cannot be simplified. The GCF of 7 and 10 is 1. So it's already in simplest form. Number 3, we have 33 hundredths, and 33 only has factors of 1 and 33, and 3 and 11. And 100 is not divisible by 3 or 11. So it's already simplified. Then we have 875 thousandths. And these are both divisible by 25. So we would get 7/8. Okay, so this is going to be 7/8 in simplest form. Numbers 5 through 8 ask us to write each fraction or mixed number as a decimal. And so remember, our decimals are place values of 10. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. So we want to scale all of these denominators up or down so that they are a factor of 10. So when we look at each of these fractions, we're being asked to write them as decimals. So we need to either scale them up or down so that they have a denominator that is a multiple of 10. And if we can do that with some mental math, great, or with some quick arithmetic, or if we can't do those problems easily with quick arithmetic by scaling up or down to factors of 10, then we can just divide it out with long division and get our answer that way. So we have a couple of options as to how to get to these answers. So when I look at number 5, I see 77 200ths, and I know that 77 is odd, so I can't divide by 2 because that would be, if this were even, if my numerator were even, I could divide by 2 and then easily get hundredths, which I can write as a two decimal place value, but it's not 100. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to scale it up. 77 200ths. We're going to scale that up to thousandths, okay, because 200 times 5 will give us 1,000. So that's pretty easy to do. I can multiply by 5 to get to 1,000. And so whatever I do in the denominator, I also need to do in the numerator. So I can do 77 times 5. 5 times 7 is 35. And 35 times 7 again is 35 plus the 3 we carried is 385. So 385 thousandths as a fraction. And then as a decimal, it's 0.385. That's 385 thousandths. Okay, so then let's go ahead and take a look at number 6. We have 1/20th. We can't scale it down to tenths, okay, because that would give us 1/2 over 10 if I divided each of those by 2. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to, 1/20th, we're going to scale that up to hundredths because I know I can multiply this by 5. So this would be 5 hundredths, which is 0.05. So 5 hundredths. Now 75 is our denominator. 75 doesn't go evenly into 1,000 or 100. It doesn't go into either one of those, either 100 or 1,000. It doesn't go in easily. So I'm going to try one more thing before I resort to long division. So when I look at these, I notice they're both divisible by 3. 3 times 4 will give us 12. 3 times 25 will give us 75. So these are both divisible by 3. So I'm going to divide these by 3 and see if I can use my scale down to scale and then scale up strategy, which I think we'll be able to do for this problem. We're just checking at this point. So 12 divided by 3 in the numerator gives us 4. 75 divided by 3 in our denominator gives us 25. So that's great because then I can scale that 25 up to 100 by multiplying by 4. So that's a good strategy and that will work to get this in decimal form. So times 4 and whatever you do to the denominator, you need to do the numerator. So this will give us 16 hundredths. So as a 16 hundredths as a fraction is 0.16 as a decimal. So 0.16. Now, if you didn't see that strategy and you're thinking, well, I would never have thought to do that, no problem. Then what you can do is divide. This, remember, is a division problem after all. You can use long division to do 12 divided by 75. So you would set it up this way. 12 divided by 75 and use that decimal division that we practiced at the beginning of the year. So let's go ahead with number 8. So I could scale that up to 1,000. We know it's going to be 8 point something. So let's go ahead and get the 8 out of the way. We'll just leave that there. So 21 40ths. I can scale that up to 1,000. So let's see, 21 40ths. So what I'm looking to see is how many times does 40 go into 1,000? So is 1,000 divisible by 40? And so what I'll do is over here, what's 1,000 divided by 40? 40 can't go into 1, it can't go into 0, so I can't write anything above the 1 or the 0. It can go into 100, it goes into 100 2 times. 2 times 40 is 80. Subtract, I get 20, bring down the 0. 40 goes into 200 5 times. Okay, so that's 25. So 40 goes into 1,000 25 times. So then all I need to do with my numerator is multiply that by 25 as well. So times 25. Okay, and remember, this is a non-calculator unit. We do need to be able to do these calculations without a calculator. It just reinforces our basic skills. So we have 21 times 25. We'll just do that over here in the margin. 21 times 25. That's 525. So it's 8.525. So 8 and 525 thousandths. Number 9, Mercury orbits the sun in 87 and 24/25 Earth days. Venus orbits the sun in 224 and 7/10 Earth days, and Mars orbits the sun in 686 and 49/50 Earth days. Write each mixed number as a decimal. So let's go ahead with Mercury, and we'll see that Mercury is orbiting in 87 and 24/25. So we can't simplify 24/25 into tenths evenly. 25 does not go into 10 evenly, so we can scale it up to hundredths. So this will be 87, and what we're going to do is take our numerator and denominator, multiply them both by 4, so we can get a denominator of hundredths, which we can easily write as a decimal. So we'll take this and multiply by 4. 25 times 4 is 100. 24 times 4 is 96. So we got 87 and 96 hundredths as a fraction. We write that as 96 hundredths as a decimal. And then Venus orbits the sun in 224 and 7/10. This is already in tenths, so we don't need to scale it up or down. It's just 224 0.7, so 224 and 7/10. So 224 and 7/10 for Venus. Mars orbits the sun at 686 and 49/50 days. So this is Mars. Okay, we can see that 50 will easily go into 100, so we'll scale that up. 686, so we'll make this into hundreds. Well, the 686, we already brought that over. So to get to hundreds, we just double the denominator. So whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. 49 doubled is 98. So 98 hundredths as a fraction is 0.98 as a decimal. So Mars is 686 and 98 hundredths. Number 10, last week a share of stock gained a total of 1.64 points. Express this gain as a mixed number in simplest form. So we have one. We want a mixed number, that's a fraction. So first of all, let's read this. 1 and 64 hundredths. To write it as a fraction, it's 1 and 64 over 100. 1 and 64 hundredths. So I look at 64 and 100, they're both divisible by 4. So this is going to be 1, and my denominator 100 divided by 4 is 25. And then my numerator 64, I'm pretty sure that's divisible by 4. 4 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, we get 24. So 4 goes into 24 6 times. Okay, so that's 16, 1 and 16/25, and that can't be simplified. So 1 and 16/25. Okay, moving on to number 11. Let's scroll down. The table shows the ingredients in an Italian sandwich. What fraction of a pound is each ingredient? So meat is 35 hundredths. And we'll go ahead and the 35 hundredths, we'll write that as a fraction and then write it in simplest form. So 35 hundredths. I look at 35 and 100. Those are both divisible by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So 7/20ths of a pound. I'll just add another column to my table. So 7/20ths. Vegetables, when we look at vegetables, we see 15 hundredths. Okay, and those are both divisible by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 3/20ths. The secret sauce is 5 hundredths. So secret sauce. So 5 hundredths. 5 and 100 are both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So we get 1/20th. And the bread is the same. So that'll also be 1/20th. And then letter B. How much more meat is in the sandwich than vegetables? Write the amount as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, so how much more meat than vegetables? So this is going to be 35 hundredths minus 15 hundredths, or we can do, we already have these written as a fraction. So 7/20ths minus 3/20ths. So 7/20ths minus 3. So that was, let me just double check. How much more meat is in the sandwich than vegetables? Okay, good. So yes, 3/20ths, or excuse me, 7/20ths minus 3/20ths is 4/20ths. And then we always simplify. So we look at this and see that 4 and 20 are both divisible by 4. So we get 1/5 of a pound more meat than vegetables. And then part C, what is the total weight of the Italian sandwich? Write the amount as a fraction in simplest form. So these are all in 20ths, so we can add these together. So 7/20 plus 3/20 plus 1/20 plus 1/20. So we're adding our numerators because we happen to have like denominators. And so 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 1 is 11, plus 1 more is 12. So 12/20. 12 and 20 have a GCF of 4, so we can divide each of those numbers by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So the entire sandwich weighs 3/5 of a pound. Okay, so that was a independent practice, page 93, converting from fractions to decimals and vice versa.